Hey guys, in this video we'll be designing our own sandals or flip-flops, whichever you'd like to call them. It's best to start with tracing your foot on a piece of paper and marking the spot where, well, right between your big toe and your second toe, and then about 2/3 of the way down marking a spot on the left and right side of your foot, about 2/3 of the way down. If you scan that and you bring that image into Rhino, you can trace that outline and then offset that curve using offset curve with a little bit bigger, something around 15 to 20 millimeters to make a bigger outline of your foot. And that should be adequate for making our sandal. Right, with that as a base file, that's what you see here. We'll be starting to design our own sandals. Right, so let's start in the right viewport, and we would like to just draw the shape of our sole. So we want to start with the two widest points over there, and I'm going to start by designing a circle. I'm doing a very basic pattern just for the sake of expediency. So I'm drawing a 8mm circle, and I'm copying that circle to there, and I'm moving it over, let's do 1mm. Let's see what that looks like. 1mm over that way, and I'm drawing a line through them just above the midpoint and trimming that off. Trimming that off there, and I'm saying blend arc to make that, or to blend those two arcs together. Sorry, using the wrong tool there. Using blend arc to blend this guy and that guy together, and I'm copying that blend to the opposite end over there. So I'm grabbing those and saying join, and then I'm copying that a couple of times, and that'll be the basis for the texture or tread pattern on our sandals. So I'm saying join for those two, and then grabbing that again and saying copy again, and I'm just making a bunch of copies to create the tread pattern and top surface or texture of our sandals. So there we go. That should do the trick. Grabbing all of those, and I'm saying join, and I'm just sliding that on over so it matches the two marks I made for where our tread should end. All right, so next up, I'm going to move that downwards to around where our sole should be, and I want my sole to be about 20mm thick, so I'm drawing a line that is 20mm long to there, grabbing that and saying mirror to the opposite side. Where's my midpoint? I'm just turning on my mid snap and flipping it over to that side, and I'm drawing a line to connect the top and the bottom curves. No, that's not right. From the end, just turn on my end snap there, from the end to the end, and then another one over here from the end to the end, and we join those together, join. So that'll give us one closed curve, details, one valid closed polycurve, and I'm grabbing that, and in my top viewport, I'm going to go ahead and extrude that as a solid, and I'm also grabbing our shoe outline and extruding that as a solid, and then where those two overlap, if I use my Boolean intersection command, I will get the sole section for my sandal. Let's view that nice and big. There we go. That's the sole section for my shoe. All right, next up, what we need to do is we need to draw these studs or lugs that need to protrude through our sole. So I'm going to maximize my top viewport, and I'm going to start from the one between our toes. I'm drawing a circle that is 8mm in diameter, and I'm drawing a second circle that is 15mm in diameter. To make that work, I'm going to grab the small circle, and I'm going to say extrude that as a solid all the way through. It needs to be at minimum of 20mm long. I'm making it longer than it needs to be there, and I'm doing a second extra long one that punches all the way through the shoe. Those two I'm going to use to cut the holes, or Boolean difference the holes. So I'm saying Boolean union for those, and I need to make a second set because I need to keep those as the lugs. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say I want to extrude as a solid this curve, extrude it up to there, and the 15mm one I'm extruding down, but I only want that one to be 5mm thick. So I'm grabbing that one, and the extra one I just made, the shorty one, and I'm saying Boolean unioning those two, and in both of those sets I'm grabbing them, and I'm saying I want to make a copy from that point up to the point down there and the point down there. The reason for this is because I need to punch the holes or Boolean difference the holes out of the sole first. So I'm going to say Boolean difference, select the sole, select these extra long ones I made, and Boolean difference those out. Now what's left is the shorter lugs I designed that are fitting inside those holes and protruding through the shoe. So if I move those, you can see there's the hole in the sandal. And next what I need to do is I need to cut those off level. The back two, I need to cut off level with my sole, and the front one needs to be 20 millimeters long before I cut it off. So let's do that next. I'm just drawing a block that's level with my sole, like that. And I drew that badly. I'm just going to scale to make it bigger from there to there, making it, ooh, I'm doing that very badly. Just making that wider. There we go. I can use that to cut off both of those rear lugs. So I'm going to go ahead and say I want a Boolean difference, keep those two lugs, and cut off with that guy. So I've cut those off flush there. The next one, what I want to do is exactly the same thing, is I'm going to go ahead and draw a block across that section, like that. And I'm going to move that block up, move up 20 millimeters to there. And I'm going to use that to say Boolean difference. Keep that guy. There we go. So that gives me the two rear lugs, that one and that one, and that one. And now I need to draw the strap that connects those two. So this is probably the trickiest part of this design process. And it's not really hard. We just have to kind of be precise with the path that we're following. So I'm going to go ahead and say I want to hide everything except the two lugs in the back there and the front lug over there. I'm going to say Control H. And the rear two lugs, they're currently valid closed poly surfaces, and I don't need the top surfaces. So I'm selecting both of those. I'm saying explode, and I'm deleting those two top surfaces and joining everything back together again. Next up, I need to draw the side profile for those straps. So I'm going to go ahead and start by drawing an ellipse over here with a radius of 8 and with a radius this way of 2.5. So that'll give me a strap that is 16 by 5. Now it's a little too rounded for my liking. What I want to do is I want to make that a little bit more square in profile. So I'm going to select that curve and say rebuild. And I want to rebuild it with 16 control points. What that will do is it'll allow me to grab these control points and those control points, not these two and not these two. And I'm going to go ahead and say I want to scale 1D outwards. I'm just going to turn grid snap off briefly there so I can do that and make it a little bit more square in profile. And I'm happy with that. Next up, I need to position it in the right spot. You know what? I'm going to make a copy of this first. What I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a copy of that and say copy from that quadrant down low to the center of our main stud up there, because I'm going to need it in a few minutes. It's faster to copy it now. I'm going to grab that guy and say move from that quadrant over to this quadrant. And now I need to blend these two together. Now to make my life easy, I'm going to grab that and say I'm going to move it up 0.2 millimeters, very little. I'm turning my grid snap back on again. Now I need to blend these two together. Now the easiest way to do that is just to say loft this shape onto that shape, and I want to change my alignment so that these two are at those two bottom quadrants. And if I loft now, I get a decent blend on that. Now I can refine this later if I wanted to with a little bit of a fillet, but I'm happy with it as is. So what I want to do is I want to make another copy of that guy from this side onto that stud over there. So I'm going to go ahead and select it, and I'm going to say copy from that quadrant over to this quadrant. That gives me both of those studs. And the next thing I want to do is I want to grab that one, and I'll make sure my ortho is set to 22.5. I'm going to select those two, and I'm going to say rotate from that center out 22.5 degrees, and this guy rotate from that center out 22.5 degrees. That should do the trick. Now my last or second to last step is what I want to do is I need to draw rails from here all the way through to there. But I just need to rotate that guy first and put that in the right position. If I grab that curve now, you will see it's a little bit too high. I need to drop it down 2 millimeters, 2 millimeters. So when I try and Boolean union that later, it will actually fit and have a smooth flat blend. Next up, I'm going to go ahead and say rotate around that center from there to there for 90 degrees. And that gives me that. Now I have everything I need to start drawing my arcs or curves to create the rails. I'm just going to bring back my shoe as a guideline. Let's do the arcs first, and then I'll bring the shoe back to see or use as reference. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the curve and interpolate points tool, and I'm going to go from that quadrant, the top outside one, out this way, that way, that way, to the inside one. So we go outside to inside. All right, so now I'm going to bring my shoe or my sole back to use as a reference. And I'm just going to tweak this line a little bit so that it looks like it could accommodate a foot a bit better. And the next step, what I want to do, I'm going to hide that again. I'm going to draw a line out horizontally this way. I need to make sure that this line, the reference points for that line, do not cross this horizontal line to create a smooth blend with the guy next door. So what I want to do is I'm going to draw a line from that point down, and from that point down, and I'm going to make sure my intersect snap is on, and I'm going to say that point, I want to move from that point to the intersection. Now we get a smooth blend that way. And I do the same for this one, from there to that horizontal line. That'll ensure that we get a smooth blend on the opposite end of that. All right, so I can delete these drawing aids or these guides I used earlier. Next up, I want to grab this guy and create a secondary copy. I'm going to say copy from that quadrant to this quadrant. And now it just needs a little bit of tweaking to match or blend up with that one. So I'm going to select this point, that point, and that point, and say move from that point to that quadrant. That looks half decent. But the second thing I want to do is somewhere here at our widest point, I have to tweak this curve and this curve so they meet here somewhere. So I'm going to go ahead and say I want to grab that guy and bring him out a little bit, bring that guy in a little bit, bring that guy up a little bit, and in a little bit, and that guy too. So they meet somewhere there-ish. That's step one. Step two is you'll notice that over here, they are kind of on the same level. I don't want that. I don't want them to go up just a little bit here to arc over my foot. Like that. And I need to change the height here to make sure that there's enough space to fit another one of these cross-section profiles over here. So what needs to happen is that the inside one needs to go up. And I don't quite have enough reference points to edit it the way that I want to. So I'm going to go ahead and select that guy and say rebuild. And currently I have 7. I'm going to up to 16. That's good for me. Select that guy, do the same thing, up to 16 points. And now I can move or edit that guy. So we go up a little bit here. That should do. I'm going to say up. 1, 2. That guy up. 1. These guys can go down a little bit. This guy can go down a little bit. That guy can go down a little bit. That should do the trick. And then our other friend needs to go down. So these points need to go down a little bit. Deselect there and there. Go down a little bit. I think all of these can go down a little bit more. You and you. So this is just kind of fine-tuning and tweaking that curve until we get the shape that we want. That one needs to be a little bit lower to get a bit more of a blend. You as well. So I'm trying to keep these curves as smooth as possible and eventually reach about a 16 mil gap between those. So we have a decent blend. This guy's not there yet. There we go. This guy can come down a little bit. So we're trying to create a gradual transition. 0.5 mil up that way. You go up a little bit more as well. So this is what we're aiming for. So one should go up and over, and the other one should go down and under. But we don't want it to cut into our foot there, so these guys can do down a little bit more as well. Let's do that. Move down just a little bit. I think that should do the trick. Now, next up, I want to grab that guy and try and place it over there. So I'm going to make a copy, and I'm going to move it over there to there. Oh, no, that's completely the wrong spot, but okay, I'll recycle it anyway. Stick it over there. I'm going to say rotate from there to there, 45 degrees, and then rotate it here, 45 degrees, or 90 degrees. And now I need to somewhere place it here and create enough space. I'm going to say, I want to move it from that quadrant, and I'm going to turn on my near snap. It's one of the few times I'm going to use my near snap. Just make sure I place it somewhere there-ish. So somewhere there, they should do the trick. And that means I need to edit these a lot more. So that tells me these guys have to go down. That. And maybe that one. So move 1, 2 should do the trick. Move that one, just 1. And these guys can do a little bit more. So it's just a process of tweaking these until you get a decent or smooth blend or transition from those to the ones below. You need to go down a little bit more. That one. It's a little bit of a tedious process. Not tricky, and I'm being a little cautious as well. I'm going to grab those and go up a little bit. Up. There we go, that's perfect. Move that guy up a little bit. That's perfect. So because that's done now, I can go ahead and try and sweep that and see what it looks like. We have a little bit of a wobble there. That guy needs to go up a little bit. Missed it. There we go, that's a smoother blend. Yeah, that's perfect. So let's see what that looks like. I'm going to go ahead and say sweep 2 rails, rail 1, rail 2, cross section, and we use that guy over there as our final cross section. That's not bad. I did do something weird over there. No, it's perfect. I'm very happy with how that's blending together. That's one part. So now we have to do the opposite. So I'm going to hide that guy temporarily, Control H, and I'm going to grab this, and I'm going to grab that interim one as well, and I'm going to say mirror to the opposite side. So obviously we need a whole strap. Oops, accidentally selected the points there. That's not going to work. So go ahead and say mirror over from that half to the opposite side. And now what we need to do is we need to tweak those so that they end up meeting here. I'm just going to hide that guy because we don't need it right now. I'm going to go ahead and say all of these points. I think I'm going to rebuild. This guy's a little bit too busy. I'm going to say rebuild this guy. 16 points. I'm going to cut that down to 10. Say okay. Bottom guy as well. Cut that down to 10. And that should make our blend a little bit easier. So we're going to go ahead and say move those in. Grab all of those, really. That guy and that guy. Grab all of those and say move in to about there. And I'm going to go ahead and say deselect those ones up there, move them in a bit more, and then grab those guys. Grab just those guys over there, not that. And I'm going to move those in a little bit more. Not that, just these. Not you. Not you, but you and you. Move you in a bit more. And now the last part that I'll do is I'll just connect to that part over there. So go, just want to say move that point from that point to the end. Move that point from there to the end. Oh, no, that's wrong. Move from that end point to there. Okay, so let's go see the holistic part and see what that looks like. That should do okay. This guy's a bit wonky. That should do the trick. Let's do a view from here. Yeah, that's going to start looking a bit weird. So this needs a bit of a tweak. So over here, we need to create a bit more space. That one can go down a bit. That one can go down a bit. This one can go up a bit. That point and that point can go up a bit. This one needs to go up a bit more. That will go around our foot quite nicely there. And because I didn't tweak it too much, you'll see that this guy still touches, or almost touches, most of those curves. So that'll do just fine. So let's go ahead and sweep that rail too. So I'll say sweep 2 rails, cross section, start there, go through here, and end with this one over there. And we're good to go. I'm going to bring back the old one. So we can now say this guy, and that guy, and this guy, and this guy, and then this guy, and the bottom of our lug over there. We can say join, which will give us one valid closed poly surface. And the last step to complete our shoe is to Boolean union these two there where they overlap. So I select both of those, and I say Boolean union, and I'm done. So this is now one valid closed poly surface, and my sole is one valid closed poly surface. And if I want to add a little bit of differentiation, I can select that and say display color red, this top one, display color blue, and we're good to go. Our sandals will work. You'll see a nice smooth blend all the way around there, joining with our foot there. All right, lovely. That's how we design a sandal. Thanks for watching.